So this morning our author talk is Truth and Fiction with the brilliant young Swiss author Seraina Kobler. Seraina has gained recognition for her crime novels, which explore the intricate and often dark facets of human nature. Seraina's background in journalism has significantly shaped her approach to storytelling, giving her narratives a strong foundation in real-world issues and an eye for detail. Debuting in 2020, her crime thriller, Deep Dark Blue, is the first in her Commissario Laurenti series, set against the backdrop of the serene yet mysterious Swiss landscape. The novel introduces readers to the world of police officer Rosa Zambrano, a character whose depth and complexity mirror the author's own insights into human psychology and societal dynamics. The success of Deep Dark Blue has led to further installments in the series, with each novel continuing to explore themes of crime, morality, and the consequences of human actions. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Seraina Kobler. So, I'm curious just to start to know where you first came to writing, or how you first came to writing, because obviously you had a successful career as a journalist and did a lot of copy editing and other work related to writing, but not as an author per se. When was the first time you wrote, or what brought you to writing? What was the inspiration for you?
Yeah, before I was a journalist, I was this child that always walks with the books, and I was the only child, and reading was my great passion. And we had a dog, and like the teenagers today, do it with the smartphone and did it with the books. And we spent many hours in forest. Yes, sometimes in my life I was more real in the books, in the reading, than in the normal life. So stories and books was always a part of my life, also for my biography. So I found answers, inspiration, dreams, can travel in books, and then I'm getting older. And
Where did you like to travel to in your books? So you're growing up outside of Zurich or in Zurich? Which part of Switzerland did you grow up in?
First years was grew up in the south,
Okay.
the Italian-speaking part, till 4 years, and then we go back
to the northern.
It was in a wild valley, and then my parents decided to go to the city and get a normal life. And then I was grew up in Basel,
Okay.
Nearby the French.
So you were
German.
So you grew up throughout Switzerland in a way.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, in a way, yes. And then the last 20 years was, or I didn't count again, maybe 22 years for Zurich.
But when you were a child and you were traveling through those books, where were you going to? Were you going to Paris, New York? Were you going to a countryside? What were the places that you were in your mind traveling to?
Everywhere, and we had this dog, and my parents loved this dog because I was the only child, and the dog was the other one. And we never traveled so far. We was in Switzerland, we go to the mountains, but I was with 8 years once at the sea. So I need the books to discover the world. So I was everywhere. Maybe till today, I wasn't in Paris, I wasn't in Rome, I wasn't in London, but I know these towns. So
have you been to Paris?
No.
Still not.
No,
so
still
through books.
Yes, but I think there's a syndrome.
There's been a recent political election there. You might not like it as much.
You have this illusion of this, and maybe it is Paris. I know it from the books. It's a better Paris.
Okay.
And I'm a little bit afraid to do the reality check. So,
Interesting. And so you traveled through books. Just give the audience an idea of the authors that you loved, or the books that you loved as a child that transported you or took you. Were there a particular series or a type of writer that you admired when you were a child that sort of transported you away?
Yeah, I was always guest in the library in our village. So I read all. So it was not just like this. Afterwards in school, you have this. You read Thomas Mann and Dürrenmatt and all the classic books. But when I was a child, I was free, and I was always interested in books that are for a little bit older persons. So maybe with 9 or 10 years, I go into the library from my parents. And my stepfather, he was a policeman, and he had a great collection of this from these small books like Jerry Cotton and Agatha Christie, and all these classical detective stories. So, and I read them during the night in my room, and then after I could not sleep, but sometimes.
Gave yourself nightmares.
Sometimes, but not always. Sometimes. And
Well,
then, I discovered this. What I really preferred was this English landhouse crime stories with this female detective. So and they always do this afternoon TV. I love that.
Well, that unexpectedly brings us back on our topic, truth and fiction. I didn't realize that your stepfather was a police officer. I didn't know that, actually. And a lot of your earliest memories of reading and what made you passionate about reading were crime novels and Agatha Christie. Mm-hmm. And maybe that type brings us back to Deep Dark Blue.
Yeah.
When you're a journalist, you have storytelling and books in your memory as a child. You have your stepfather having been a police officer. How do we get to Deep Dark Blue? How does that become the way that you change your career, become a writer? Like, how do you come back to your childhood in a way through this story? What was the kernel of inspiration? What led to it, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, maybe I have to start with the book before
Deep
Dark Blue.
Sorry.
That was Regenschatten.
Not translated into English, so I have not read this one.
It's in a small publishing from
so
Zurich.
So tell the audience what that book was about, yes.
It's a kind of, the newspaper I read them, it's climate fiction in Switzerland, so, but it's
climate fiction.
Climate fiction, but it's just, if you want to do it over there, but it's only the story of a young woman that has to find her place in the world, in her life, and then you have this setting from it's getting warmer and warmer, and the rain stops, and you have 9 months during one pregnancy. There's no rain in Zurich.
Oh wow!
And
so this is set in the future, or it's
but not
not
future
like
the Orwell. It's nearer. So
the near future.
The near future. So and she's searching not only her place, also searching sense, and she makes with newspapers, for example, she makes a mosaic, and she wants to look if the collapse that comes later, if you could have seen to comet or not. So
try to see if she could have known that it was coming.
No, she didn't. But after she thinks it's her duty to find. So, but it was a dystopian text. It was in the end there's a big fire, and in the last maybe the last 20, 30 pages to write. I go into my writing studio in the old town, and I have to finish this book. And then I was a little bit tired because it was a little bit this apocalyptic feeling. And then I looked through the window, and it was a warm summer night, and you have these windows from the other side, from these old houses. There was a big tree, and it was such an other world than in this story.
Interesting.
And then
finishing that book, you're in the writing.
I have always the best ideas for the next book, and I should finish
finishing the other.
So, and
but that inspiration came from the writing studio in Neudorf, outside of Zurich.
Yeah, in Niederdorf. Yeah, it's part of the old town, and then. One night, it was the character from Rosa Zambrano was there, and so that's so many topics and things that are important in my life, and maybe our all our life. You only just have these things. You read a newspaper every day. You also have this social relationships. You have. I love to cook, for example.
So there's a lot of cooking in your books.
Yeah.
Very beautiful
Yeah,
scenes.
yeah.
A lot of sensory experience.
Yeah, because crime novels are a wonderful vehicle to transport many other things. You have this. You have to. It has to have a murder, but in many other ways you are more free than in other kind of books. And she has this garden.
I was going to ask you this. Can
Yeah.
I read just a paragraph in English?
Yeah.
Or do you want to read in English?
If you are,
Okay.
yeah, maybe.
Just to give you a setting, just to give you some sense of her writing style, or at least in English, the writing style. But it's funny, you talk about finishing that book and going to that writing studio. And Deep Dark Blue opens with a scene in, I think something must come from this writing studio, because it had, when you were talking, it reminds me of it. It is said that the most beautiful city in Switzerland lies by both a river and a lake. Surrounded by water that flows from pristine mountain ranges, through an open valley past densely populated shores, until finally the city itself emerges from the blue surroundings like an apparition. And there on the northern edge of the lake, alongside the youthful river Limmat, the medieval old town of Zurich begins. At Chez Manon, diagonally opposite the Praterkirche, I can't pronounce it, the coffee machine started up with a hiss. Faces that were still tired disappeared behind newspapers and wooden holders. A woman stood in front of it. She had a towel wrapped around her wet hair, was wearing a silk kimono that slipped off her shoulders whenever she bent down. Her feet were encased in earth-encrusted garden clogs, of the kind you could buy in DIY stores in the country. Rosa Zambrano snapped off a sprig of verbena and was quite content with herself and the world. For the world consisted of red-cheeked radishes that were growing hidden away between summer pumpkins and broad beans, or courgettes resting in the morning sun, whose saffron yellow flowers would soon be just right. And it goes on and on, which I won't keep reading. But there's a lot of atmosphere of this place this writing college, this place where her garden is, where she finds refuge. And you, in your own personal life, I'm guessing, find the same in your writing cottage or your writing studio. And is that sort of where this book began, I guess?
Yeah, the place exists. It has also a name. It's the Black Garden, and it's in the middle of the old town of Zurich. You have the houses there are from early Middle Age, yeah, it's an atmosphere like in a monastery in the middle of the town. And in reality, the garden doesn't exist like in the book. So, because in crime novels you have to murder someone, and yeah,
we'll get to that next.
And sometimes you can also do something a little bit better. So, the garden is one thing I do a little bit better for her. It's not she has it for her own, and she has her vegetable, a little bit berries, and it's not so big. It's a little bit inspired from. I love the books from Nigel Slater. Okay. He's a journalist and cook from London, and he has such a garden, and it was a little bit. For me, it was always a place of dreaming, and I gave her a little bit Nigel Slater garden in Niederdorf. So,
and what about the title, Deep Dark Blue? Where does the title come from? It suggests sort of themes of mystery and depth. How does that title encapsulate the essence of the novel for you? How did you come to it?
The title is, you have different meanings, but you can think Zurich is a really blue town. You have the river, you have the sea, you can swim in it. During winter days, you have the scene of people, they always go, and in summer times, of course. And you have the most public bus places in the world, in one town in Zurich. So the blue, it could come from the water, and it's not false, but my idea was the deep sea, because it's one of the last places in the world that you have really wilderness, and we can't go over there. We leave maybe our trash there, but we cannot go there. And all the rest of the world we have formed, we have cultivated, and the deep sea, they maybe.
It's still a raw,
free.
savage wilderness
Yes.
that's still free.
Yes, and this is the picture for me for this for another topic in the book. And it's this CRISPR-Cas technology that you can do in one sentence. It's also the question if we want to change and to manipulate the last wilderness in ourselves, the way we have the reproduction, and if we want to optimize our genetics structure. So
it's a wilderness that we're headed into, right? We are actively as humans exploring that. It's not. It's no longer an unknown, and your book touches on that obviously with. The main character, Rosa Zambrano, wants to go to a clinic, and she's going through freezing her eggs. And so the book goes into this issue of CRISPR-Cas technology, and there's a scientist who's helped invent this technology for a commercial purpose with a business partner, and that's where the story starts to go wrong. The business partner who's very capitalist and maybe using the technology illegally, and the scientist who's, along with Rosa, this sort of dual protagonist of the novel, who has a change of heart, essentially. That's sort of what the book is about. That's bringing us back to some real life truths that are going. These are issues that are playing out. Not this exact story, but issues similar to this are playing out in the real world. So, to what extent does truth play in your novel, in this novel, and your novels in general? And how do you decide when to fictionalize versus when to, try to stay to the truth? And we can go in a lot of directions with this now that I know that your stepfather was a police officer, because it seems like there's a lot of intense study and accuracy in the police work in the novel, as well as in the biotech side of the novel as well. But how do you handle truth in your work, and how do you decide when to fictionalize?
Yeah, maybe it's a difference between truth and reality.
Okay.
Because maybe truth is more searching for truth than you have in crime novels. There's another thing also.
Okay.
And maybe the reality and the imagination, and you mix it. You take real places that exist. Then, for example, the station, the police station. This is fictional because we have 4 at the Lake of Zurich.
Okay.
In Switzerland, for this you go to there, and then you're there, and then it would be too complicated to explain only for Swiss people and for other ones. So then I decided to do one, and I fictionalize. I give an own name for the street that doesn't exist in a real city.
Right,
so
some adjustment. But sticking with the police station, again, your stepfather's a police officer. The book is incredibly detailed in terms of Rosa's work and her partner. She has a partner, Martin, who she has a romantic relationship with. But as the murder unfolds, which we'll talk about, there's it seems like incredible accuracy in terms of the police work, the research, the forensic evidence. Did you spend time with the police in Zurich, or how did you make that part of the book so feel, at least to me, to be so like a documentary almost?
Yeah, it was hard work.
Okay.
And maybe I do too much research. I was in the laboratory at the university. I visit the sea police. I go to the sea police boats, and I read a lot about from Charles Darwin till these 2 Nobel Prize winners, 2 women, Jennifer Doudna, and they won for this CRISPR technology a few years ago, the prize. And yeah, in the end, you need just a little piece of all the rest. Yeah, maybe it's for beginning. Yeah.
So both in terms of the police work and in terms of CRISPR, you obviously did a lot of research and you spent a tremendous amount of time. Was there a challenge with that you faced that you had to overcome, or no, everybody was very, in Switzerland everyone's very forthcoming and you had a lot of support, people were very interested in, the police really wanted to have you around, they had no problem with you going out on...
Yeah, this question, it helps to be a journalist before, because you know a little bit like how to have to write an email, or they know you maybe from media stories before, and then but at first I write for myself, I want to write this crime story and it's about that, and what would you do in this moment? And say, we cannot say something to that, you have to send me questions in the last detail. So, and then I wait a few months and do my own researches, and I write, and then I come back with the expose and questions in all details, and then they can work it. So we have an expert for fire, for poison, for this, and then you can ask, but yeah, it's always, you always need help. So
there's a lot, she's giving you hints of the book, there's a lot of events that happen, fires and poisons, murders, so there's a lot that happens, it's gripping, you can't stop until the end, you're always waiting for the next turn of events to happen. Going back a second about truth, because we've had a couple people, and we're going to talk later this morning about swimming as well. There's a great scene I want to read a little bit about, but I'm curious, the swimming scene of her in the water, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but are you a big swimmer? Is this, again, truth and fiction where, you know, Rosa, there's a part of you that's Rosa and part of Rosa that's you? I felt that when I was reading those scenes about swimming, about her immersion into the lake, and I don't know, is that something that you do on a daily basis, or?
Yeah, maybe swimming, one of these things, she makes also me to a better person.
Okay.
Because
she made you into a
sometimes
swimmer?
I think, what would Rosa do? And maybe she would go for a swim and cool down, and she has routines, and she's really grounded. She's more grounded than me. And she has to, every new book is also a test for her. If she can say like this, and also for me. And swimming was something that was, from the beginning, it was a part of this character, of this her work, of this life in the Niederdorf. You have, by bicycle, you have 5 or 10 minutes, and then you can live in a city, and you can take your morning swim in winter times and summer times. In the second book, Nachtschein, there's a winter swim thing. So
I've done that. I don't enjoy that as much as the summer swim, but yes. Let me read a couple lines.
Yeah.
The lake lay in the morning light, gentle and wide. In the eyes of some, it was the only thing that gave the banking city anything like profundity. For at the bottom of the lake, the city was freed from being a city, and at its deepest point, its depth was still 17 meters greater than the height of even the tallest tower. Glistening spots glided across the surface of the body of the water, which lay under a cloudless sky. Still slightly out of breath from the fast bike ride and the even faster change of clothes, Rosa rubbed the inside of her swimming goggles with a little spit. There were hardly any waves. The ship's turbines and motors didn't start to arrive until there was no wind. She still had a bit of pain in her abdomen, but the cramps of the first days after the operation had quickly subsided. Relieved to be able to resume her training, she walked down to the shore. She needed the outdoor exercise. Something happens to you when the space you are in is infinite, her father used to say. And then at the end she says, Rosa could make out swarms of fish against the wave-shaped sandy bottom, possibly rudd or perch. The steady, repetitive movements of her body, carried by the water, slowed the flow of the thoughts in her head. She experienced the same state when she was cooking or on walks and hikes, when thoughts began to sort themselves as if by magic. So there's a bit of you and Rosa and a bit of Rosa and you. Talk to me about the challenges that you face in mixing truth and fiction in your stories. And I'm thinking of the thinking of the murder. Did you research the murder of this famous scientist that happens early on in the book? Did you research other murders that took place that were similar, either in Zurich or elsewhere, or was that completely fictionalized? How did you? Because it's a pretty complex. The way you structured it, it's a complex murder. It's pretty brilliant. So, how did you come up with that? Was it from something that happened in real life, or was it completely from your imagination?
It starts with a picture.
Okay.
I had this picture from a man in the water, and this creature, a little bit like a woman, like a fish, and it was in the first light from the sun, and you have this, in summer times, you have this green-blue color of the lake. It's only a few weeks because of some protests in the water, and then you have this, it's like Caribbean blue.
Turquoise.
Yeah, and then I had this picture, and then I have to think about who's the man, what does bring him into this situation. And first of all, it was this picture, and this comes from Deep Dark Blue. For me, from the beginning, first of the crime story, it was the book of summer. And when you have the light is high and the water, it's the element from the other side, from the sun, you have this, it gives this combination, and you have also these topics in the book from reproduction. Also, the fishes are pregnant.
A lot of reproduction.
Georgina, this big fish in the lake, and she also goes to let her eggs there. And you have this everywhere. You have it's growing, and it's clear and sunny. And then it was for me. I have this intuition that the murder, it has to be in the water. So after I have to find all the other things, why he's dead.
I was going to say, so you didn't get to that point in the book and say, okay, Moritz has to die. Let me think of how I'm going to write the murder. You actually had this idea and this image long before.
And then a policeman from the sea police, he told me an old story. And at the end he says, but you don't have to write this. These are always the good stories. They always say at the end, it's only for you, it's not for writing.
Yeah, of course, and you wrote
a little
it.
bit he hopes that you write it. So, and he told me that they found that man in the lake of Zurich, and then they found into his for breathing.
His wetsuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
They found some particles from another lake. Not the lake of Zurich, another lake 20 kilometers above. And then why you have a dead man that is died in another lake, you find them here, and that was a little bit the starting point to this book. Moritz Jansen, and in the book he has from plants in the water. He has little pieces, and they are from another part from the lake. Then they found him, and
Can I read this one paragraph? Because I love this part of the book.
Of course.
At the jetty under the copper birch, he lowered the tiny dinghy into the water, climbed in, and picked up the paddle. The stillness of an early summer morning still reigned on the water. They had often met out on the lake, which allowed for discretion. This is Jansen, who's going to have an affair with a young woman, and so he's going out on the lake in this boat. Wind rustled in the reeds. Reflexively, he looked back to the shore, which threw him off balance for a moment, but he kept paddling, even though the plastic floor on which he was kneeling began to sway. The memory card was safely hidden in the villa. Later, he would bring it to Alina in bed with a breakfast tray, freshly squeezed orange juice, coffee, a bag of still warm croissants from the bakery, and the genetic code. He had the chance to make it accessible to people, all people, not only those who were like him. What a world they could create. At first, Jansen didn't notice the dinghy capsizing. The water was barely colder than the sweat on his forehead. He lost his bearings, swam down, rolled back to where the first rays of sunlight were shining through the surface of the water. He got tangled in the thick carpet of seaweed, and his phone slipped out of his pocket and disappeared. When he looked up through the blue-green water, he saw a figure in a dark wetsuit coming towards him. She moved more like a fish than a human being. Her feet had turned into a single wide fin. Mirrored diving glasses with a wide field of vision covered the upper half of her face. He panicked. She dived after him, a stab in his leg, another one, neoprene hands on his ankles. Heaviness pulled him down. His senses blurred. He saw the sun, naked, bright, and glaring. When he closed his eyes, Alina appeared to him. Their first encounter on the dance floor, the unreal light of the strobes on her body, a perfect melody. Then the images flickered, a whole life squeezed into just a few seconds. Highs and lows connected by a ribbon of memory that floated freely and lightly through time and space. The crumpled faces of the twins, dozing on his naked chest after the birth, his fingers enclosing their tiny hands. He felt his own mother's rough hands on his wet forehead, as if he had a fever. Then he breathed out. I was sad. It was so early in the book, and you killed them all. And he was going to save the world from this, genetic crime.
Yeah, it was really important for me to give him not a good death, but respectful. So
it was a good death. Coming back to truth and fiction, I wanted to ask you: can fiction reveal deeper truths somehow in your writing? Can you get to a deeper truth than we get to in our own reality?
Yeah, I think the reality you have every day. You have too much information. We have one day we have more information and things to decide than someone in the middle age at one life or two. And I think to find the truth through all these informations and things that happen to us and influences. Sometimes at first I thought if you write, then you have to you need much fantasy to imagine things that didn't exist, but I think it's more to reduction and to bring together and give the things a meaning, and you have to choose always. And
that's what I was about to ask you. If it does reveal deeper truths, how does that influence Deep Dark Blue or your
and
writing?
then you have to choose maybe for a moment and for this character. And it's a truth, it's always something that you have it and then you lose it. And it's always just for this moment, for this question maybe. And because of this, the writers, when you find the final truth, then you stop writing maybe, or living. It's always searching new. So, but I think
You said something to me the other night about, which I wrote down, where you said that writers sometimes drift through the world like a whale through an ocean.
Yes.
And that stuck with me and reminds me of this discussion about
I love this picture from the whalefish and goes through the ocean and he eats this krill, these small pieces. Every day he filters and filters, and when you are writing then it's a little bit the same, and you filter much more than you need for your stories. But you have to filter the world, and then you have to choose, and you bring it like a big puzzle. Sometimes I feel when I'm a collector. Maybe
what do you collect?
With little scenes, atmospheric details, with some things that the character are thinking about. And then I collect it only often when I'm bicycle. Then I have an idea, then I start and tip it with my iPhone. The biggest part of my books I write in the notice program on the road,
on your iPhone.
Everywhere, when I'm at sports or you have a shower and then you have an idea. And bicycle, it's wonderful. And you sit over hours at the writing studio and there's no idea, and then then you have to go home to pick up the children with the bike, and then it's all lonely. Yeah.
And so you collect.
Then
I thought you said you collect physical things, but you mean you collect all those ideas from reality. You
Yes.
store them together and
Fragments
then you filter through
from
them.
world, from little pieces, and
So interesting.
it's like you go with the hands over a card, and then you feel it makes a reaction, and then okay, there's something for a book, but I don't know for which story or for which character, for which place, but I have to collect it. But sometimes I collect too much, and then I have an idea for a novel, and sometimes I have too much details for 3 or 4 novels, but I want to write just one. And then it's like puzzling with 1,000 pieces puzzle with the landscape in green, always just in green colors, and then you have to search it and to
Find the missing piece.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
You just led to my last question, and I want to open it up to the floor for questions. As you're piecing all those bits of collected information together, and you're thinking about your next books, what are you working on next? What's coming next for you? Are you sticking with Rosa Zambrano? Are you going in a different direction? Are you bored of her? Are you still excited by her? What's next? From your bike ride, what's coming next?
Yeah, the second part from Rosa Zambrano, it was the book of Winter.
Yeah.
I have read it in the night, and it was my third novel.
You wrote it literally during the night, or what did you mean by you wrote it at night?
During the night. I didn't sleep over weeks. Not didn't sleep, but maybe 3 hours. At the end, it was a Walking Dead something. So, and yeah, and I don't know. It was the energy of this book. So it was in the dark, in the winter, and I made myself a lot of pressure, and it's always a book after a book that.
I was going to say it must be hard because the book has Deep Dark Blue has been so well received.
Yes, and then the next book you make the pressure, and then I finished it, and I love it too. It has another quality than Deep Dark Blue. It's a summer book. It's always another thing than the winter. So you all know the difference between. And after this, I told me the next book. I want to write it during the day, and not in an easy way, but with pleasure on writing, and not this I have to, I want to. So I have to search this new for me, and then there was it's always a bicycle with finding stories and writing stories, and I was 2 years ago. I was in summertime. It was one of the first summers after COVID. And I was in Angelina, and
Where is Angelina?
Engadine.
Engadine.
So yeah, and I have a Brompton. It's a bag. You can take it like a bag with you,
Okay.
and then I took the train to the passes, and did walk, and after I go down by bike, and one of these trips I found on the Benina Pass an old tower, and inside there's a Camera Obscura. It's an art project, and I was the only person there. There was no one on this path. Normally in summertime it's always like party on the path. Yeah, all are there and eating and with cabriolets, and so there was no one because all gone by sea after the pandemic years. And then I was there all alone in this tower, and this Camera Obscura, it was only a small through, and you had the glacier from the other side from the lake, and it was this picture in the darkness from this glacier, and in this moment I had an idea for a story, and it was maybe half an hour or something like this, and in one way, all was there in this moment. I had like a...
The vision of the whole book.
Yes.
That you haven't written yet.
First draft.
Okay.
First draft. And now second draft, but since yesterday I'm happy with it could be take 8 drafts and could also getting well. So.
But it's not Rosa Zambrano. It's a new story.
It's a new story.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a story not in Zurich based.
Okay.
There are some scenes in the French part of Switzerland, in Gstaad. I wrote 1 year ago some chapters here.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
And with the train, with the Montreux line.
The Golden Path.
The Golden Path line, yeah. Trains and bicycles are all some things that goes
Okay.
through my books. So.
And when will we get to read It's coming next year, you think?
Yeah, now I'm on the second draft. Now it's the question how many drafts I need. So, but yeah, I learned a lot with this book because the first draft was more. It was setting, it was atmosphere, it was the characters, it was like a stage, and you have the characters, and they are wonderful. It's like a beautiful picture, and finished. And now in the second draft, I do the plot, and now I connect all these pictures and characters together, and the plot is finished, every scene. So it's the first time that I work like this, and now I try to connect this, and yeah, when it's successful, then maybe next year. And after this, I want to come back to Rosa with new energy and a lot of cooking ideas. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Let's have some questions from the audience. If anyone, we have a microphone. Thomas in the back. Alex.
Thomas first, please. Thank you for that. That was wonderful talk. My one question is, as somebody who has written both truth and fiction, first as a journalist and now as a fiction author, how is the difference between writing as a journalist versus writing as a novelist?
I asked you this question at dinner last
Yes.
night. So funny.
yes, but it's. I was also in the media council, in the Swiss Media Council. Then you decide from, the journalist work doing correct. So I had a strong picture of my profession. So, and for me, when I decided to write fiction for a longer time, then it was also a decision to quit my job, my everyday job at the newspaper, because all that in fiction you have to use your fantasy and imagination, and in the journalism it's not allowed to do this, and to do at the same time in the same head, it didn't feel right for me. So, but now after 8 years, I can not every time from a book, but when I'm in the last writing weeks, months, then it's not possible to do something other. But in the research, at the beginning, I can work. Maybe I can write an essay, or But I have the forms change a little bit. Before I made politics only, and then it's really important to separate what you are thinking about something and what you write about. And when you write an essay, then there are more colors allowed inside. So, and now I do a little bit more this. Or I love interviews and portraits, and But sometimes I miss it. So this journalism is always, you go there and you don't know in the morning
what you're going to do.
Yeah, and every day new, and you have every day. It's like this Pavlov's the rats,
Yes.
Another the dog.
Yes.
You always have this. You write and you publish, and then you have this. You get a little.
Yeah, you get the excitement, the Pavlovian response. Yeah.
Yes,
Go to
yes,
the next
of course,
one.
yeah, and then you go to the next, and with the books it goes over years. So you have
It's
3 or 4
not as
years.
immediate.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's take another question. Melis?
Thank you. Given the duality in your book, there is murder, which is death, and there's a lot of reference to fertility, which is birth. And I also, on a private conversation you mentioned yesterday when signing my book very kindly, from beginning to end and in between, if I'm not doing injustice to your German. And there seems to be philosophical themes. Although your book is a thriller, it feels there are deeper questions attended, especially with regards to biotech. Is it the case? And if yes, could you give some examples?
This could be like a whole separate hour. Yeah. Take any part of that you want to. It's a great question. It's complex. We talked about this a little bit about Deep Dark Blue in the title. It's not just about nature. It's not just about the human being. It's about these complex issues, morality, genetics.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's morality or it is maybe the question where we are coming from. Maybe it is the history of technology for all. This last 300 or 400 years, our world is getting faster and faster, and maybe with CRISPR-Cas you have one way to show these things, but you have many other ways too. But the question before is where do we go? So where are we are coming from? And in our genes we are like not like the first Homo sapiens, but we are nearby them more than that we live.
More than we want to admit, probably.
Yeah. And yeah, and then you have this you also have this trend in history, this big picture history like Harari, and yeah, it's not that you look from the Second World War till now, the eyes getting, we look bigger. So, and in the end we can look from the Big Bang till the end of the universe, but we can only live a small little part, and that I write you inside and in between your life or this life, and it's always to go from the big and also to the small, or to your daily life, and you don't have to forget to switch sometimes. We have so many informations, and when you read the news every day, then there's also a danger to forget this small piece we have at the moment. So.
I encourage you all to read Deep Dark Blue. It's exactly what Melis, you just asked in her response. It somehow covers these very, very broad topics that we talked a little bit about today, but in a very personal way. And the character of Rosa and her partner Martin, Moritz and his business partner, the bad lady, it is you come back down to the little moments of life and the individuals. It's really beautifully done. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for coming.